Peter, what has the reaction been to his appointment?
Well, Tom, it's been somewhat of a mixed bag. Certainly the opposition have been very critical of the Coldrake appointment, and it's very important that we get some context around Peter Coldrake. He's a former Goss government senior bureaucrat. He and former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who was the then Chief of Staff, basically set up the Labor bureaucracy back in the early 90s. And I guess the question that really Queenslanders want answered as far as Coldrake's appointment is, will he get to the bottom of the dysfunctionality and the drama that exists within the public service now? And we've had some very serious, damning allegations that have surfaced, and the two that we think Coldrake might like to get his teeth into, but whether he has the terms of reference to do that, is this so-called, laptop affair with the Integrity Commissioner, Nicola Stepanoff. She claims that the laptop that had sensitive information was seized by the Public Service Commissioner's office. So it'll be interesting to see whether we can find out what exactly happened there. And of course, we've also got Mike Sumrall. Now, he is the guy that basically archives what goes on. He's the state archivist, or was the state archivist. And in 2017, he claims that his annual report was amended. It was changed to exclude certain controversies that were attached to Transport Minister Mark Bailey, who, of course, was mixed up in that Mango Cube affair where his private emails were scrutinised. So it'll be very interesting, Tom, to see whether, in fact, Coldrake has the capabilities, the terms of reference to go ahead and actually look at those serious and significant issues.
So what of them? Because there's commentary that those terms of references are too narrow.
Well, Tom, those are very valid criticisms. If you hark back to 1989, when the Fitzgerald inquiry happened, the first Fitzgerald inquiry, which looked at corruption between the cops and politicians, the terms of reference were incredibly broad. And when that report came down, you remember the then Premier Mike Ahern adopted those recommendations lock, stock and barrel. We have a situation here in Queensland where individual witnesses, individual complainants are not being allowed to air their grievances to this particular inquiry. We also have protection issues. Will they be provided, these whistleblowers, the proper protection to enable them to come forward with tales of woe within the public service? So that's a challenge. That's where the opposition are basically saying that this does not go far enough. The Premier on Friday said anyone that Professor Coldrake wants to talk to, he is entitled to do that. So that'll be an interesting part of the going forward when this particular inquiry begins.
All right, just quickly, international arrivals streaming into Queensland. As of today, it's going to help tourism. We know that, Peter, but it's a slow turning back of the tap on, isn't it?
It's a bit like turning the Titanic, isn't it? Yeah. 712 days since we saw international arrivals into Australia without that prerequisite where they had to do the 14 days quarantine. I think of all the industries, Tom, that we've talked about that have been most impacted by the pandemic, I've got no doubt that tourism has been the one that's been impacted the most. There are still people who are very much on their knees. There are people who have left the industry. We've seen restaurants and cafes have to scale back. They're now clamouring for staff. But look, it is a day where I think there is some optimism attached to it, and let's just hope that we can get back to those glory days. And of course, I'm just near Coolangatta Airport here. We've seen flights. The tripling of international flights into Coolangatta Airport in the last 24 hours. So that's great news.
Yeah, it'll happen. It will happen. Queensland as a destination, still a great one, Peter. So get ready for crowded tourist destinations again, not too far away. Thank you.